Hey everybody, we're here today in beautiful Ephrata, PA, Pennsylvania, and we're here specifically to see a monument associated with a man I'm sure most of you are familiar with, Richard D. Winters. As a member of Easy Company, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne, I'm sure you're familiar with his World War II story, as well as the story of those of the men that he led. Easy Company's been made famous by the book Band of Brothers and the miniseries Band of Brothers, of course. Major Winters himself has been the subject of many books and podcasts and videos like this. And here in Ephrata is the Winters Leadership Monument.
If you're a leader, you lead the way. Not just on the easy ones, you take the tough ones too.
And here it is. Winters Leadership Monument. There are only two of these in the world. The first one is near Saint-Marie-du-Mont in Normandy, France, where Major Winters exhibited some of his earliest examples of leadership in combat. And then there's this one here in Pennsylvania, which is a cast of the original, located here in Ephrata, close to where Dick spent some of his very early childhood years. You'll notice this is not called the Dick Winters Memorial, and that's intentional. Full name of this monument is the Richard D. Winters Leadership Monument, and Dick only agreed that sculptor Stephen Spears could use his name and likeness if the monument would be dedicated to all of the junior officers who served and died during the Normandy landings. When we talk about leadership, let's remember that Major Winters, who was then Lieutenant Winters, landed on D-Day as the leader of 2nd Platoon. He was in charge of maybe 3 dozen soldiers, maybe 30 to 40 soldiers. Of course, we know that paratroopers were dropped all over the French countryside, so it wasn't like they landed all together as a group. But still, Winters' responsibility, in theory, was 2nd Platoon. When Easy Company Commander Thomas Meehan couldn't be found in the day following the landings, and it was later confirmed that his plane had been shot down, Winters assumed command of all of Easy Company, which could be upwards of 200 soldiers. So he was thrust into a much larger leadership responsibility during some of the most stressful and dangerous days of the invasion. Bill Walsh said, "Champions behave like champions before they are champions." And I think that quote from the sports world also applies in all other areas of life. Leaders behave like leaders before they are called to lead. And that was the mentality that officers like Winters and so many others had. They had to have that to successfully lead those men in their charge. Many officers during the war had that mentality. Well, there are also many others who didn't, and some soldiers never came home as a result of poor leadership. So we're here talking about Major Winters' leadership during World War II, but what doesn't get talked about as much is the fact that he was recalled to service during the Korean War as well. And at the time he asked General Anthony McAuliffe to avoid sending him to Korea. He had enough of the war already, obviously. McAuliffe understood his position, but also desperately needed Winters' style of leadership and command experience, and that's the highest quality, and that's what Winters provided, high quality leadership and command experience. So they agreed that Winters would instead be assigned to Fort Dix, New Jersey, as a training officer. That proved to be a difficult position for Dick because the officers he was tasked with training showed very little of the discipline and commitment that he expected. Remember, Dick was an original Toccoa man. You don't finish airborne training at Toccoa unless you have had an extraordinary level of dedication and commitment. So he volunteered to go to Army Ranger School instead. And yeah, that's right. Dick Winters became an Army Ranger after World War II. He knew that would mean deployment to Korea, but he had the insatiable desire to serve only with the best. And in the end, he didn't have to go to Korea, but rather was offered a chance to resign his commission, which he accepted. So Dick Winters went back to his quiet piece of land and lived the rest of his life in peace. Now we're going to go drive just a few miles from here and pay our respects to Dick Winters at his final resting place. So we're here now at the Bergstrasse Evangelical Lutheran Church. And what a beautiful cemetery they have here. Actually, all the grounds are beautiful. Some very, very old graves over here on the left side. A lot of the inscriptions have worn off over the years. But some are still legible. And here we are. We've arrived at the final resting place of Major Richard D. Winters. His wife Ethel, right next to him. She died just about a little bit over a year after Major Winters did. You'll notice on his stone it simply says World War II, 101st Airborne, born 1918 and deceased 2011. Nothing fancy on here. He did not want a lot of attention. He's buried here in the family plot, Winters family plot here at Bergstrasse. And I'm going to pick that wreath up in just a second, so do not worry. But had he been buried in a place like Arlington, for example, his headstone would have his Distinguished Service Cross on there. But he did not want attention. He wanted all the attention to go to his men, his comrades, his teammates. He did not want the attention for himself. So it's very, very simple headstone here for what most of us consider a pretty great man. As we do, typically I leave rocks, and there's some rocks here on his stone. But because he is a service member, and that's why we're visiting him today, I will leave a penny. Take a minute here and kind of clean up the area a little bit. It's pretty windy here today, which is probably why things are getting blown around a little bit. I did what I could to kind of put things back together. This is the family plot for the Winters family. This is Dick's father, Richard N., passed away in 1946, and his mother, Edith, passed away in 1970. Got Richard Winters here, Richard N. Winters, 1901. Probably a grandfather, I'm guessing. This one's a little bit harder to read. And of course, there's Richard and Ethel, Dick and Ethel. It's a pretty little cemetery here in Ephrata. If you come here to pay your respects to Major Winters, you just look for the big, the marker with the big round ball at the top, right down the hill from the church. And there's the church up there at the top of the hill. So the Winters family do have some roots, does have some roots in Ephrata. Dick Winters himself, after the Army, went to work with Lewis Nixon at Nixon Nitration Works in New Jersey. Bought a small house in New Jersey. Eventually bought a larger place in Hershey, Pennsylvania, where he eventually went to work for himself selling animal feed. Started Richard Winters Incorporated. I believe that's what it was called. Retired at age 79. Was slightly uncomfortable with all of the celebrity that came along with the Band of Brothers book and miniseries. But he did his best. His wife, Ethel, kind of took care of his appointments and made sure that everything was scheduled and squared away, because he had a lot of demands on his time once he became kind of a celebrity. Now, Ethel, like as I said, lived about a year after Dick passed. And I kind of like to think that she just decided that he needed her to take care of scheduling and appointments for him in heaven. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
And basically, I have one message to all. They're all the same. Hang tough. And I mean by saying hanging tough, do your best every day. Whether it's in school or at your job or wherever you are. Do your best every day. And you can't ask for it. You don't have to know all the answers. No way. Don't expect that of yourself. Just do your best. Satisfy yourself so at the end of the day, you can look in the mirror after you brushed your teeth and say honestly to yourself, today I did my best